You know, in the world of tech, there are partnerships, and then there are the monster alliances that basically define an entire era. For the last few years, the entire story of AI has been dominated by one of those, Microsoft and OpenAI. But what happens when the biggest, most important partnership in tech starts to, well, fall apart? That's the story we're going to break down right now.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with what looked like the perfect partnership, then dive into the cracks that started to show up. From there, we'll see Microsoft's Plan B take shape, how that just pours fuel on the AI arms race, and what this all means for a pretty uncertain future. So let's rewind. The team-up between Microsoft and OpenAI wasn't just a big deal. It was literally the engine that powered this whole generative AI explosion that we are all living in. On paper, you couldn't have drawn it up any better. Microsoft desperately needed the world's best AI to bake into its products, right? And OpenAI needed two things to build that AI: an absolutely insane amount of cash and the kind of supercomputing power that only a cloud giant like Microsoft has. It was this perfect, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours kind of loop.
And when I say an insane amount of cash, I really mean it. We are talking about $13 billion that Microsoft has pumped into OpenAI. This wasn't just some casual investment. It was the rocket fuel that let OpenAI build things like GPT-4, and in the process, pretty much change the world.
But you know how these stories go. As the stakes got higher, as both companies got more and more powerful, their goals started to drift apart. And behind the scenes, that perfect foundation started to get some pretty serious stress fractures. And really, it all boils down to this one fundamental problem. OpenAI, thanks to all that Microsoft money and power, grew into a giant in its own right. And you know what? Giants don't always like being chained to just one partner. They started looking for a little more freedom. And this created some major friction. For starters, OpenAI wanted to be able to run its models on other clouds, like Google or AWS, which was a huge threat to Microsoft's exclusive deal. Then they started arguing over who really owns the technology. And get this, there's even this wild AGI clause in their contract that could let OpenAI just cut Microsoft off completely if they managed to create a true super intelligent AI. Things got so heated that OpenAI apparently even thought about accusing its biggest investor of being anti-competitive. Yike.
So, staring at all this drama and uncertainty, Microsoft did what any tech giant with endless resources would do. It started building itself an insurance policy. A very expensive and powerful insurance policy, by building its own AI models from the ground up.
So say hello to the MAI initiative. That's Microsoft AI. They went out and poached this AI legend, Mustafa Soleiman from Google, and basically gave him a blank check and a crystal clear mission: build us an in-house AI juggernaut so we'll never have to rely entirely on an outside partner ever again. The first big thing to come out of this group is MA1 Preview. And make no mistake, this isn't some side project. This is being built as a direct replacement for the OpenAI models that power things like Copilot. Microsoft is literally building a new brain for all its consumer-facing AI. But they didn't just stop with text, and this is what shows you just how serious they are. They also built MAI Voice 1. It's this ridiculously fast and natural-sounding speech model. I mean, it is so efficient it can spit out a full minute of audio in less than a second on a single GPU, and they're already quietly slipping it into some Copilot features. So when you look at these two models together, you really start to see Microsoft's strategy. With MAI 1, they're going for sheer power. They're using something like 15,000 top-of-the-line NVIDIA GPUs to play in the big leagues. But with MAI Voice 1, it's all about crazy efficiency, getting amazing performance out of just a tiny bit of hardware. This is about building a versatile AI toolkit they can control completely. And this quote from the guy running the show, Mustafa Soleiman, just lays it all out. He says, "We have to create something that works extremely well for the consumer and really optimize for our use case. The goal isn't just to build a generic AI. It's to build AI that is custom fit, perfectly tuned for Microsoft products. That gives them total control over how it performs and how much it costs." So look, this move doesn't just shuffle the deck for Microsoft and OpenAI. It completely escalates the global AI arms race. Microsoft has officially gone from being the one funding the king to being a contender for the throne itself. All of a sudden, this whole landscape looks completely different. For a while, it was a two-horse race between OpenAI and Google. Now, with the MI series, Microsoft is planting its flag as a third major power, competing head-to-head with the very partner it helped build. And we have to just pause here for a second and appreciate the absolutely mind-boggling scale we're talking about.
Microsoft's 15,000 GPUs. That's a huge number, right there with what Meta is using. But then you see a company like Elon Musk's xAI using over 100,000 of these things, and you realize this isn't just a competition, it's a war fought with supercomputers. So, where does all this leave the most important couple in AI? Can these two companies really keep working together when one of them is busy building a direct competitor to the other? It's the question, the one everyone in the tech world is whispering about. Has Microsoft's Plan B finally become its Plan A? Now, if you ask them publicly, of course, everyone's putting on a brave face. Microsoft's CFO, Amy Hood, says they're both successful when the other is successful, and that this is all part of a plan for the next decade or two. The official company line is, everything's fine. The partnership is great. But if you look past the public statements and just watch what they're actually doing, the real strategy is obvious: diversification. Microsoft is building this flexible system where it can pick and choose the best AI model for any given task. Maybe it's OpenAI's, maybe it's their own My model, maybe it's something else entirely. They are making sure they are never, ever beholden to a single partner again. And that brings us to the big, final question we have to ask ourselves. Microsoft building its own AI is a massive competitive power play. But does this kind of fierce head-to-head battle between giants actually push innovation forward for all of us? Or does it just end with each company building its own powerful, closed-off AI kingdom? The answer to that is probably going to define the entire next chapter of artificial intelligence.